Hello everyone, it is your host, Philip Madeleke, and today we talk about humans. As I always talk about humans, or most of the time anyway. Anyways, welcome to Genetics Unsealed. Now, when we imagine human evolution, we often picture a tidy sequence of discoveries. Bones found, species named, timelines drawn. But the reality is far messier. The story of other hominins is not just a story of ancient bones, it's a story of misinterpretation, bias, technological breakthroughs, and profound revisions of what it means to be human. Today, we're going to look at how our closest evolutionary relatives were discovered, and just as importantly, how they still shape our biology, health, and ideas about ourselves today. Neanderthals were the first other hominin species ever discovered, and for a long time, the most misunderstood. In 1856, workers in the Feldhofer cave in Germany uncovered unusual bones, a skull cap, limb bones, and fragments that didn't quite match modern humans. At the time, evolution itself was controversial. Darwin's On the Origin of Species wouldn't be published for another 3 years. Early scientists interpreted the remains through the lens of their own prejudices. Neanderthals were described as brutish, primitive, and mentally inferior. Some even claimed that they were pathological modern humans. It took over a century, and the accumulation of more fossils across Europe and Western Asia for this view to collapse. Neanderthals are no longer a footnote, they are part of us. Today, most people of Eurasian ancestry carry 1 to 2% of Neanderthal DNA. These genes influence immune system responses, skin and hair traits, metabolism, pain sensitivity, and risk for autoimmune conditions. Denisovans. Okay. So if Neanderthals were discovered too early, Denisovans were discovered just in time. In 2008, researchers excavating Denisova cave in Siberia found a tiny finger bone. Morphologically, it revealed very little. When scientists extracted DNA, they got a shock. The genome did not match Neanderthals. It did not match Homo sapiens. It belonged to an entirely unknown hominin population. This is revolutionary. Denisovans were factually discovered through genetics first and anatomy second. Denisovan DNA has had direct, measurable effects on modern humans. Some populations in Melanesia and Australia carry up to 5% Denisovan ancestry. The Denisovan gene variant allows Tibetans to thrive at a high altitude by improving oxygen usage. Denisovan genes influence immune responses and metabolism. Denisovans demonstrate that human evolution cannot be understood without genetics, and that our adaptations often came from other humans, not just mutations arising in isolation. Homo florensiensis. In 2003, archaeologists working on the Indonesian island of Flores uncovered a nearly complete skeleton of a small-bodied hominin. At just over a meter tall, with a brain far smaller than ours, the individual was nicknamed the Hobbit. Many scientists initially rejected the idea that this was a separate species. Some argued it must be a modern human with a growth disorder or a pathological individual. But repeated discoveries, stone tools, and careful anatomical analysis confirmed the truth. Homo floresiensis was real. This discovery shattered long-held assumptions that larger brains also always mean greater intelligence, that evolution always moves in a straight line towards complexity, and that only Homo sapiens could produce tools or culture. Homo erectus was first discovered in the 1890s by Dutch anatomist Eugen Dubois in Java, then known as Java Man. Later finds in China, Africa, and across Asia revealed something extraordinary. Homo erectus lived for nearly 2 million years, spread farther across the globe than any other hominin, controlled fire, and developed long distance walking and running, and made sophisticated tools. Despite this, erectus was long portrayed as primitive, largely because it didn't resemble us closely enough. Homo erectus shaped our body proportions, our endurance based locomotion, our capacity for long distance migration, and possibly early social cooperation. In many ways, erectus laid the biological and behavioral foundations that made later hominins, including us, possible. Even our own species has had to be rediscovered. For decades, scientists believe Homo sapiens emerged around 200,000 years ago in East Africa, but discoveries at Jebel Ahud in Morocco, dated to around 300,000 years ago, radically changed that timeline. These fossils show that early Homo sapiens were anatomically diverse, spread across Africa, and evolving as a network of populations, rather than a single birthplace. This reinforces a crucial point. There was never a single original human population. Modern humans emerged from interconnected, diverse groups, exchanging genes and culture long before leaving Africa. Together, these discoveries dismantle several myths: the myth of genetic purity and the myth of a linear ladder of progress. Instead, they reveal interbreeding instead of replacement, diversity instead of uniformity, and connection instead of isolation. One of the most persistent myths about humanity is the idea that modern populations are clean, distinct, or genetically pure. Genetics tells a very different story. Every modern human population is a result of repeated migrations, isolations, reunions, and interbreeding events, stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. There's never been a moment in human history where populations were sealed off forever. Instead, our history looks like a constantly shifting web. When Homo sapiens began spreading out of Africa roughly 60,000 to 70,000 years ago, we didn't enter an empty world. We encountered other hominins, Neanderthals in Europe and Western Asia, Denisovans in Asia, and possibly other still unknown archaic populations, and we interbred with them. This process, called admixture, left measurable genetic traces that persist today. Most people outside Africa carry Neanderthal ancestry. Some populations in Oceania and Southeast Asia carry significant Denisovan ancestry. Even within Africa itself, populations show evidence of deep ancestral mixing with now extinct hominin groups. Admixture wasn't an accident or rare event, it was a normal part of human interaction. Ancient DNA isn't just an evolutionary curiosity, it has real effects on modern biology. Neanderthal and Denisovan genes helped early humans adapt to new pathogens outside Africa. Some of our immune responses today are inherited from these ancient encounters. Denisovan DNA genes help Tibetans survive at high altitude. Neanderthal genes influence skin pigmentation and vitamin D processing in low sunlight regions. Although some archaic variants that were once beneficial now increase risks for autoimmune diseases, allergies, metabolic conditions, and metabolic conditions. Evolution optimizes for survival in past environments, not long term health in modern ones. It's also important to challenge another misconception that admixture only happened outside Africa. Africa contains the greatest genetic diversity of any continent. Many African populations show evidence of gene flow from ancient hominin groups we haven't yet identified through fossils. This tells us something crucial. Human evolution in Africa was not a single origin point, but a network of populations exchanging genes over long periods. The idea of a single ancestral human group is a simplification, not a biological reality. Modern populations exist because of geography, migration, cultural practices, political borders, and historical events. They are not discrete biological units. Two people from the same population can be more genetically different from each other than from someone on another continent. This is why geneticists consistently reject the idea of biological races. What we call populations are snapshots in time, not ancient unchanging lineages. This is where genetics delivers its most decisive blow to bioessentialist thinking. If modern humans are mixtures of multiple ancient hominins, overlapping ancestral populations, and constant gene flow, then the idea that biology defines fixed categories of people simply collapses. There's no genetic essence of Europeans, Africans, Asians, or any other group. There is only shared ancestry, mixed inheritance, and continuous variation. Human diversity is real, but it is gradient, not categorical. Instead of asking, what group does this person belong to biologically? A better question is, what history shaped this genome? Every person alive today carries traces of ancient migrations, remnants of extinct humans, and adaptations shaped by environments that no longer exist. Your genome is not a label, it's a record. We are the survivors of connection, mixture, and exchange. Human evolution did not produce purity, it produced diversity through interaction. And understanding that isn't just good science, it's essential for dismantling the myth that we still tell about ourselves. That's all for this week's episode of Genetics Unsealed. Until next time, signing out, your host, Follow me, Adeleke.